We have no one other than Rad Dad himself, and owner of Shred Skatepark in here, Craig Maxwell on the podcast. Congratulations
How's it
on the
going?
great news that you're now a father. I used to hang around with you guys when I BMX and skateboarded. You and your business partner Dave Hunter were the founding fathers of the crew at the outdoor council skate park that I can't say the name of because I'd probably get demonetized if I made any money. There was some negative role models kicking around that area, but I know myself and many others were inspired by you, and I just want you to say off the bat, congrats for that, for inspiring people, and congrats to your business to date.
Cheers.
It's as simple as that, mate. What I wanted to get from this podcast is to understand your story of turning your passion for action sports into a packaged business or a monetizable solution or vehicle. And I want you to kind of almost inspire others not to settle for like a corporate job or something by the book that seems prosperous or sensible, but isn't either fulfilling or enjoyable. I want more people to kind of cash in on their passion. Do you think we can achieve this?
I think we can. I think we can. I think the trouble is it starts from like school though. You know, they start chipping away at you at school, I believe. Like, well, from my experience, I mean, I know that it's changed quite a bit since I was there, but um I definitely think there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to, select subjects that you don't necessarily want to do. And I mean, me personally, I'm definitely more on the creative side of the spectrum than um, I didn't really like maths and English and stuff like that. I would have much rather had my day filled with PE, music, art, graphic design, like that sort of stuff. And it gets to a point where you have to choose one against the other. And I remember like I couldn't take art because I had to take like either a geography or a history. Or, it's just it's. I think I don't know if that's changed much now, but I think that definitely it starts to try and mold you into that sort of thing, and then they start pushing you towards obviously trying to aspire to be an accountant or to be a lawyer or what have you. And for a lot of people, it's just that's not what they enjoy. Simple as that.
Exactly. I think that ideology that you have on skills is just a simulacrum of what essentially you're, like a maverick, a creative, like a mold breaker. I always take it back to the beginning with guests. So who was Craig Maxwell before Shred Skatepark?
Um, like probably just a little average. I was definitely like just an average achiever in school, and then I just got absolutely hooked on like snowboarding, mountain biking, all that sort of stuff. So up until then, I was always good at sport, like all sports. Like, I played, in school, I played football, rugby, badminton, table tennis, volleyball, the lot. I liked sport. I just hated being sitting at a desk really in school. So, um, yeah, I played football like as most teenage boys do in Scotland. They're kind of forced into playing football, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But then, I can't quite pinpoint exactly the moment, but I distinctly remember getting my first like kind of hit of adrenaline, either snowboarding or on my bike or something, and it just took off from there. Basically, all I thought about. I mean, I remember that one of the only good things about school actually is we got to go to Aviemore on a snowboard trip, and that pretty much set the tone for the rest of my life.
So after school, what was next for you?
So next was oh yeah, I headed off to the Alps to snowboard for the guts of a year. So I went and lived in Teen, 2,100 meters above sea level, up in a little village, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was probably one of the best years of my life. Um, yeah, what did yeah, my flight out was like a few weeks after my 18th birthday. So I left school. I worked in Halfords as a bike mechanic, actually, just because, again, it's something that, my kind of passion drew me to. Like, all my mates were maybe getting like, jobs in a cafe or whatever, but I was just naturally drawn towards something that I liked. And I'm also a person that I definitely can only get good at something if I'm actually into it. There's no chance I can force myself to get good at something that I don't like. So yeah, bike mechanic, and I ended up. There was at that time as well. There was the guy who was the deputy manager there, who was actually the acting manager at the time. He was into his bikes and as well, and kind of saw a little bit in me. And I was basically running the kind of bike hut stage at like 17, 18 years old. And at that time as well, I could have easily just, I could have probably saw out a career doing that at one point as well. But yeah, just did that, saved up enough money to head out snowboarding for a bit, which was just fantastic, absolutely amazing. Going to the Alps, getting involved in a bit of a different culture, meeting different people. Yeah, it was probably the best thing I ever did.
That reminds me, because this is a self-development podcast, it reminds me of a philosopher's theory guy, a Romanian guy called, I think he's Romanian or Hungarian, called Csikszentmihalyi. I don't know how you pronounce it. Something along those lines, right? And it's called the flow theory. It's really famous. It means to enjoy life or to be fulfilled, you need to have a career or an opportunity that is high intensity or highly challenging, but also something you highly enjoy. And I think like the theme I'm getting from you is like everything that you've done encapsulates that. And maybe like the bike mechanic part, fair enough, it was really enjoying, but you probably like completed it, mate, at some point, and that's probably what led you to your next thing. So what was after Halfords and what was after your time in the Alps?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, I came back from the Alps, and so I've always loved planes. I've always loved anything to do with flying. My uncle worked on the Tornadoes down in the Falklands, and my dad flies gliders and stuff like that. He's got a plane up in Portmoak, and I've always been obsessed with it. I mean, I genuinely think there will be someday where I go back to it. And I want to get my helicopter's license or something like that. Like, there's definitely something. But yeah, I joined RAF. I don't know if you knew that, but yeah, I joined RAF. So I joined as an avionics tech, so working on all the electronics in aircraft. And I went down, did my basic training, all the rest of it. Went down, did my training at Halton, and kind of through. I really enjoyed aspects of being in the forces, and I really hated aspects of being in the forces. I loved just the accent. I mean, even during training, like getting, you go down and work with a regiment for four weeks solid, basically playing soldier. I mean, it's fantastic. It's great fun. See, for like, you've got a rifle on you at all times. It was great fun. But the result, it was just that I suppose I didn't give it much thought before I joined, in terms of the rank structure and how important that is. Like, regardless of whether you're right or wrong, or you make a poor or good decision, the rank structure is above all of that. It doesn't matter. So that you quickly get like, you quickly hone into that yeah, your life isn't yours, and it's completely controlled by the rank above you, and his life is completely controlled by the rank above him. And it kind of got to a point where I would be signed in for 9 years. I think it's 9 years. You then, like, so that you pass like a contract, you pass a threshold, where you're then signed in for 9 years, and that date was vastly approaching, and it was probably the biggest and scariest decision I made in my life. But I decided to leave.
And was that based on someone else having control of your day and your thoughts and your potential? Was that the reason you broke that mold?
Yeah, there was a couple of reasons. There was you're especially when you first join, you're so far down the rank structure that you certainly don't have a say in it in any aspect of your life. Like one of the kind of things that was close to the final straw was like, you know, I hadn't seen Nicola, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, for like quite a while. We'd booked a holiday. I'd got the time off. Like everything was all good. 24 hours before I was supposed to be boarding the plane, I was told I couldn't go, and I was just like, if that's how it's like now, like what's it going to be like when, you know, further down the line when there's something actually properly important. I just had a bit of a kind of, I joined just with a whole, you know, thinking of all the good stuff, thinking of the planes, thinking about the you know, getting to travel and see a bit of the world and stuff. And I didn't really give much consideration for the negative stuff. And it definitely hit home a bit. I mean, I don't regret it for 1 minute. I mean, I was the fittest I've ever been in my life. I mean, it was incredible. And I learned a lot of skills that, like, you know, when the apocalypse hits, I'm ready. So it's good from that point of view.
If I'm looking for a pack, to know where to come. So what was next after that? And you made that vital decision. Where did you go next?
Yeah, so I had arranged. I'd actually secured like a job with BAE Systems, and literally as I left, they lost like 2 mega contracts, and I think they made like 3,700 people redundant in the UK. And so basically, like what I had lined up was no longer a thing. So I was kind of at that moment, I definitely wasn't worried. You know, I still had no responsibilities and no, I had no overheads. I didn't have a house. I didn't have anything. So I definitely wasn't worried. And I ended up, Nicola's uncle actually runs a company, and he needed like a labourer for a few days. And so I thought, yeah, I'll go down and do that. So I did that, and basically it kind of never stopped from there. We went down to a job near Newcastle, and I didn't have any intention of like, I'm gonna go in here and properly show them, like, you know, that I'm here to work and whatever else. But I just went down and got stuck in, and that then led to me basically being like a surveyor in the leisure industry. So he was installing like playgrounds and gyms and leisure centre fit outs and stuff like that. And it turned out he had some pretty big contracts for basically all the inspections and all the maintenance and all that sort of stuff. So I ended up just getting really stuck into that, and I then became like self-employed through it, and just had my own little thing going, and that essentially was the catapult to allow me to, you know, get to the skate park, and made enough money to put a little bit back and enjoy a good level of life. And then that's pretty much right up to when we started kind of formulating the skate park and going in about that.
So your time in employment with your now wife's uncle, and then your time self-employed, were there any parallels between the work you did there or your mindset there and like what you do now? Was it the whole kind of process of having input, process, output, or creating something from scratch? Or was it just because you liked the kind of maybe the free time and the travel that came with that job?
I definitely liked the freedom of it. Like, I think I've got enough discipline, on my own to be able to like have a bit of freedom when it comes to stuff like that. I like the fact that after a certain point, I didn't have anyone breathing down my neck. I wasn't micromanaged. I wasn't sitting with, a supervisor behind me or anything like that. And once I had got to a certain level, there's like there's like industry standard tickets and stuff like that you have to get as you work through. And once you've got a couple of those under your belt, you're treated with respect, essentially. Like when you walked onto these sites, and I was still like a young guy. I was 22 years old, going into schools and leisure centres in like Gloucester, and it was quite funny seeing like the fear on like receptionist faces, because they think you're there to like pick at what's wrong. But it was just more of like a health and safety aspect of it. And I think there was parallels, and also involved in that standard as skate parks, which I quickly became quite an expert on, in terms of like there's a whole standards written on based on skate parks. Like the coping has to be certain thicknesses. You're not allowed, like when a deck is a certain height, it must have barriers. There's fall heights. There's transitions. There's flow of the skate park. There's a whole standard on it, and I ended up becoming quite familiar with it.
I can imagine. It sounds like hearing the industry standards of skate parks, that's really enthralling. But what I liked there was like the polarity or the vacillation between your career there, where it was more free reign, not micromanaged, in comparison to your initial career in the RAF. It seems like they're completely opposite, and that's probably
parallel opposites.
So I think we get not only a theme of like full send everything, but we also get a theme that you're just like a absolute action sport enthusiast. I mean, even now your whole Instagram's painted by you either on a bike or a board or in some mad terrain somewhere in the world. So what I want to know is, what is it about BMX and skateboarding and action sports that like grabs your full attention, and what does it mean to shred?
Yeah, I think I've tried to like pinpoint the kind of first, like, why it just got like that. Like I mentioned before, that initial like hit of like adrenaline was like, wow, that's awesome. That I just want more of that, and it just escalated. That started from like building little jumps down the River Aire and stuff like that, and obviously those jumps got bigger and bigger and bigger. The start of the summer they were like a couple of feet between, and the end of the summer we had a full pack built, like a 17-foot gap double was like the first one that you hit and stuff. And I think just along with friends as well, people that have watched Jackass, like if you watch the series of Jackass, like you can see the escalation. Just you get comfortable with this point, and then you think, well, maybe we could like go a little bit faster or a little bit, and it just ramps up, and before you know it, like that, it's kind of how my snowboarding went as well. Before you knew it, you're dropping into jumps that are bigger than your house, and it's just kind of almost chasing that next thing. I've never had I've never had to do that with drugs. I've always just done it with the adrenaline. It's just I don't know. It's just I get why people obviously chase that next high, because I do it in action sports, and it just goes to the next one and the next one and the next one. And in terms of like, there was actually a guy, I don't know if you remember, there was a guy, Will, who used to work at EK Park when it first opened. He was like quite a tall guy, a little bit old, a few years older than me. He actually ended up going on the Cube, and he won like 50 grand or something like that on the Cube. I'm sure you'll be able to find it somewhere. He actually did like a celebration, like standing backflip in the Cube when he won. I remember him saying to me that because I would go to EK Park, and he would just be on like rollerblades, and he was like really good at and then you would go another week and it'd be like backflipping a BMX, and then you go another week and he's like tray flipping a skateboard. And I remember speaking to him like, about the fact that, and he was just like, "Oh, I'm no sucker to one. Like, I just want to do everything." And I remember that kind of thinking to myself, that's a bit like me actually. I kind of, I just gravitate. Bottom of the line, I just think I gravitate to what I think is cool. I think that's it.
I really love, there's like three key themes that I've just taken away from that, is like not conforming is the first one. The second one is just like hitting the red in anything that you do, like full throttle everything. And then the third point is going back to that flow theory. Like everything that you've done seems like you've matched that level of intensity and then matched that level of enjoyment. And over time, there's like been a compound interest effect of like, yeah, like we did a 3-foot jump, then a 4-foot jump. Now we have a fucking skate park. Like it feels like there's like a linear progression of intensity and enjoyment. So I kind of want to allude on to from there is that, like you said, you started snowboarding, BMX, and 3-foot jumps to 5-foot jumps to now owning a skateboard. Where was the initial seed of the Shred Skatepark planted?
We've got Unit 23 to thank for that. Simple as that. Me and Dave used to go through to Unit all the time, and we just always used to, we said it every time we were there. Imagine we had just our own place like this. Imagine. Used to say it all the time, and we'd go through and we'd see like Chaz and Connor and John, and they'll just be hanging out, and then they'd go and ride for a bit, and we just used to think this would just, imagine we had our own place. And it really annoyed us actually, like thinking back to when we were younger, and we went through a number of meetings with the council and trying to get something done about the S Park, and I just feel that we were just shunned at every corner, and there was always part of me certainly that I was like, I'm just going to do it myself. Stuff it. I don't want the council to do it. We'll just do it ourselves. And yeah, the seed was always there. I think from the very first time I went to Unit 23, there was a bunch of us went, and one of my mates, Johnny, his dad drove his old clapped out Subaru with this sketchy bike rack in the back, and back then, I'm talking about, I don't know if you would have ever seen the original Hall 1 and Hall 2, no bowl in the back of Hall 1. It was like a weird kind of really dark and dingy bit with a curved wall ride and stuff, and they'd the old the old jump box and the roll in into the jump box and Hall 1 and stuff like that. And I just think from that first time, it's just always been a bit of a kind of childhood dream. Imagine just owning your own place, just similar to most pros end up building their own setup of some kind. I think it's always just ingrained in you if you're involved in those sports. Tony Hawk has a concrete bowl in his back garden and stuff, and Bob Burnquist has just an insane setup at his ranch, and it's just that dream, and we're just on that smaller scale where we managed to get a warehouse and build something fun.
So it seems like much like I probably had those same kind of visions when I was a skateboarder and BMXer, and probably everyone that surrounds that scene probably has that same ideology. So it's like a series of microaggressions of we didn't have a facility like that in Ayrshire. But was there ever a point where, so the seed was planted really, really early on? Did it blossom when you realized that, right, this is something that's not just for me? Because it is every BMXer's childhood dream to have their own skate park, but there must have been a point where I can provide something for others to then use, and I can build a community. I can inspire trust in kids. Was there a point? Is that when that seed blossomed? When you realized it's there was a massive,
there was a massive point where we were like, Ayrshire needs this, and the more people we spoke to about it, the more that point was totally reiterated that Ayrshire needs this. And I mean, we always knew it would be for other people. I mean, it needs to we need so many people through the door to pay the rent on a building that size, and yeah, so that I think we always knew that as well. I think where the idea started to seem like a possibility was when we started to realize, again, similar to like what we were talking about, like with, you know, meeting professional riders and stuff, and realizing that they are just human people. They are just normal people. We started realizing that, yeah, we can just go and sign a lease on a building. Like, we can do that. Like, there's nothing to stop us. Like, you don't need to be Jeff Bezos to go and get a warehouse. Like, we can literally just go and get a lease sorted. And we started to realize that, like, yeah, two young guys can just get stuck in about this. And it took us a while. Like, there was a big planning application that took about 9 months, and obviously that was like an area that we have no expertise in, and we probably, to our detriment as well, we didn't really seek help. We didn't have a budget really to, the first little while we were just trying to do everything as cheap as possible, really, by us. So we went through the planning process, and through the lease as well. Obviously, our lawyer, had to go through all that kind of process with that. It was quite an in-depth lease, and yeah, like one day we just got the phone call to say that we had the go ahead, and it was a case of like, oh yeah, now we actually have to build a skate park. So we just kind of dived in blindfolded, I would say.
And this is like that whole diving in blindfolded almost seems, or hitting that red seems like a theme throughout like this chat already. So taking a leap into entrepreneurship, and I guess going against the traditional grain of employment, usually raises concern with family members and friends and spouses. But even more so, skateboarding and action sports is like an underrepresented or underrespected sport. Did your kind of inner circle support you taking that leap?
They definitely supported me. Yeah, I've always had great support from like the people around me. I would say that they definitely didn't show it, but I know that there was a little bit of like uncertainties, maybe a bad word, but they knew that we could make it work, but they didn't. I don't think they really understood it until that opening day, until we opened. I mean, we literally gave like an hour's notice on like a Saturday afternoon that we were like, right, the paint's drying, stuff it, we'll just put it out there. And we had like a queue of like 70 kids at the gate, like instantly. And I think that was like a time when they were like, oh yeah, maybe like, they've got something here. They've got something. Yeah, but I've always had great support. But there's always a little bit of like unknown in there.
I think it's one of those situations. It's like if you know, you know. If you're in the scene, you realize how much support there is of the scene and how much something like the facility that you built is desperately needed. So I guess you spoke about the planning process, the planning applications, and then realizing, fuck, I actually need to build a skate park now. So how does someone start a skate park?
Yeah, we pulled in some favors from contacts, like I mentioned, like John Bailey, who was living with Danny McCaskill across the street in our flat in Glasgow, and him and George Eccleston like run Vision Ramps, who they had kind of, I'm trying to think what, yeah, they built a few parks by then. But I mean, since then they've been involved in like the latest Bond film, and like, there's a massive shot in the trailer where Bond is racing on like a motorbike and he jumps over a wall. Like, they went and built that whole setup for Bond, and they've built numerous parts of. They've been involved with like all McCaskill's projects and all, like Chris Kyle's Kaleidoscope. They built that entire set, which was just, that was mad. So yeah, they've definitely got some experience behind them. So Me and Dave knew, like Dave's a joiner to trade. We knew what we wanted roughly, and we knew roughly how to do it. It was a case of like, obviously getting an actual plan together so that the pieces fit, and getting costing and sizing and stuff like that for all the materials was a big thing that we were still kind of doing a bit of guesswork on as well. But we quite enjoyed it. It was kind of part of it. I mean, I've told this story to a few people where signing the lease and stuff like that was like, right, we need to follow this through now. But one of the days was one of the first timber drops we got. So Laurie comes with a high ab, drops all the timber, and we've been working on the actual building for like about 2 months at this point. I think the building was in that like a state of disrepair, so it took us a long time to get it even just back to a warehouse ready to go. And the timber arrived, and I think it was like £38,000 of timber in like one drop, and it got dropped. And obviously, it's the guy comes, it's all noisy, boom, 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 drops all the timber, and he's signing paperwork and all that, and he drives off. And there was just silence, and me and Dave were standing like, yeah. So we're pretty deep in this now, aren't we? And we had no alternative but to then just keep on pushing on and get it done.
So it was like at that stage, it was like forced accountability.
Pretty much. Like, well, either you need to pay that timber bill, so either you push on through, or you owe a lot of money. So that was definitely it was a nerve-wracking point, but it was a crucial point when I think back.
So from like a business understanding point of view, would you hire purchase timber in the same sense you would with like plant and machinery if you owned a factory? Is that how you pay for timber?
No, so it was bought and paid for. We had sought, me and Dave had a bit of money saved up, and we actually ended up going and getting some investment as well, which was an interesting process. Just like, again, you grow up watching Dragon's Den and stuff like that, and you just think that maybe it's just from our kind of smaller town mentality. Like, we live in a small seaside town in small Scotland. Like, it's a bit different from seeing Dragon's Den give out investments for this, that, and the next thing. But I think it got to a point where we realised that they're all just human as well. Like, all the dragons are just human. They've just been able to play the game a bit smarter, and we ended up getting an investment that would have comfortably not looked out of place on Dragon's Den, and we ended up gaining like 2 really good mentors from that as well. That kind of just definitely helped us having someone to bounce ideas off of, and one has like a lot of experience in making deals and finance and stuff like that. So it definitely helped just have make us not feel so overwhelmed, I think, with all that kind of stuff. I'm good at getting stuck in and getting on with a task, but having to deal with the kind of more businessy type things is it's not really what I'm interested in, and I didn't want to, my experience was lacking, so it was good to have that.
Yeah, I guess in the same sense, it would probably free up some, in computer terms, RAM for you to do what you're good at. Whereas if you were focusing on the back end paperwork and finance acquisition and all that kind of stuff, it might have been a detriment to the park itself and the launch date and all that good stuff. And I guess what you said, there's a perfect segue for me to just plug the sponsor of the podcast, who was on Dragon's Den, Fruit Energy Drink. I use code D/D 30 for 30% off. So you've got all this timber, you've got a building, you've got finance raised. How do you merge that into a cocktail that is a skate park?
Good question. Uh, we we just didn't really lift our heads up too much. We just for for 6 months, one from that first timber drop. I'm trying to think. From that first timber drop, I think it was less than 3 months from that first timber drop where we opened our doors to the public. And for that 3 months and the 3 months prior, we just went at it. We just didn't give it much thought. We didn't have time to give it much thought. I mean, me and Dave have spoken about this since, and I think if we had enough time to stop and think about what we're doing, we'd have probably scared ourselves into not doing it. And I think we just jumped in naively, and I think that was our strength, to be honest, to just keep on pushing through. We got the guys down from Vision to help us. You have to get the bones of the park right. Like dropping into a park that doesn't flow nicely, it can't be fixed. You have to start again. So it was really important for us to get the bones of the park right. So the transitions are all really. I mean, we get compliments about. In particular, we've got like this 8-foot quarter at the end of the rhythms, and we get compliments about this quarter all the time, like from people who travel the world, like riding skate park. They just say that the transition on the quarter is just perfect, and that's one of the things that we're really proud of. The fact that we're able to, just have the bones of the skate park it's definitely well laid out. So it was a case of, the main focus was building the park, but you've then got all the other stuff. You've then got how are people going to pay coming in? How, what about the kind of merch side of things, the other revenue streams? So that starts, getting closer to open, and all that sort of stuff was starting to take place. I'd never set up a card payment processing before. Even now, we've obviously come on leaps and bounds now. We started with like a basic kind of point of sale running on an iPad, which I think for skate parks was probably ahead of its time, actually, because most skate parks were still just literally a wooden box with some cash. So I think we definitely got a few comments from people saying that, we're definitely ahead. And now we've got, I've got a full online booking system running now for obviously going through the kind of COVID pandemic at the moment as well. So all that sort of stuff comes into play. You've also got all the other, you've got environmental health inspecting it and making sure, you've got the fire safety regulations, making sure your doors are all spaced out and wide. You've got all that sort of stuff, fire extinguishers, all the sort of stuff you need, the safety light and emergency lighting. So definitely, a lot of that stuff I was just learning as we go.
I can imagine your insurance bill for forget the name of the type of insurance, but like public protection, basically insuring you for kids jumping over 6 to 8 foot ramps. I guess that's a fucking nightmare within itself.
Yeah, public liability. So we started. Our insurance is quite expensive, as you can imagine. But certainly the first year you've got, similar to when you're 17, you get your first car. You've got no claims bonus. You've got no experience, nothing. So insurance for a business is kind of similar, where our first year we had to pay a fortune, and it was basically for the basic insurance to allow us to legally open. So you need public liability insurance, you need employer's liability insurance, and that was pretty much it. So for the first year, if the park burnt down or what have you, we'd have been left with nothing. We had nothing left in the pot to pay an astronomical fee to insure the park or to insure loss of earnings or anything. So we had to go for that. So that was definitely a nervous. I didn't think about it too much, but it was, thinking back, it was probably quite a nervous thing if something had happened. You'd be crazy to move into a house and not have your home insured. And we essentially did that with a skate park. But, things you've got to do. But now, we've got a pretty robust insurance policy and stuff now, so
that's sick.
It's all good.
So we're talking about the flow of the ramps and how you get compliments almost worldwide for that. Did you create a skate park that you wanted to ride, or did you create a skate park that you thought others wanted to ride, or a bit of both?
I would say it's a bit of both, but it swings more towards what we would want to ride, because we are the skate park user and have been for years prior. So I think that was a good place to start. Like, if we'd want to use it, then surely others would want to use it. That's what we thought. Like, one thing we were quite confident in is, like, knowing what makes a good skate park and what makes a bad one. You've got plenty of really good skate parks around the UK, and you've got plenty of bad ones here in Scotland. So, we knew what we wanted to ride, and we'd grown up riding Unit 23 and watching their progression with the skate park and what they'd done differently. And Chick up at Unit was fantastic with us in terms of, even when he first heard that we were even kind of thinking about it, he got us in and sat us down and went through so many things that really helped us. And I'll be forever grateful for that. And even now through 2020, he's been absolutely fantastic. We've been on the phone regularly, just trying to help each other out to get through that last year there. I think we definitely had faith in knowing what we would want to use as a skate park. So there was that element, and we had a few iterations. We had kind of a dream setup that wouldn't have really fit in the space, because it's amazing how much space like a transition takes up. You don't think it takes up meters just to have a transition. So I think in the first couple of iterations we had definitely tried to squeeze in too much, and then the guys at Vision definitely helped us kind of realise that simplicity is definitely the way forward when it comes to a skate park's flow and stuff like that. So yeah.
So creating a skate park locally when your competition's 40 miles away in Dumbarton or 30 miles away in East Kilbride, you spoke about Chick's response. What was their response about you kind of stealing their target market? Are they really quite cool with that? Like, are you in contact with them?
It's certainly, in this industry, it's a bit different to if you were, I can imagine a car garage, for example, like setting up shop next to them. They'd not be very happy. But the analogy I use that a lot of people understand, and this is kind of how Chick put it to me at Unit, was golf clubs. So in Scotland, there's golf clubs everywhere. So you've got, if you go from like Ayr to Troon, basically there's a golf club backs onto a golf club that backs onto a golf club that backs onto a golf club. And the way Chick put it is the more people that get into the sport, the better it is for everyone. So if there's skate parks dotted around, there then becomes more of a scene at all those places. And then similar to golf clubs, everyone loves to play their own golf club, but they also love a golf outing to another club. And that's the exact same with skate parks. Like, we still do it. We've got a group of guys. We travel down. Obviously, this year's not been great for it, but the year before we're in Malaga 2 years in a row to just go to skate parks purely. Every now and then we'll just take a drive down to Ramp 1 in Hull, or we went to Rock City in Hull, and we went to Ramp 1 in Warrington, and we'll go up to Unit 23. And somewhere our customers and the users of the skate park will go to Unit at the weekend maybe, or they'll do 1 weekend at Unit and they'll go to the loading bay in Glasgow, and then they'll come to us during the week, and we'll get people from Unit coming down for a trip down here. And in actual fact, because Unit have they've got a minibus and all that set up, they've just been on the go for so much longer. They've actually brought groups of 15 kids down and stuff like that to us, and they've been so supportive. And I think it has helped them as well, because we've then nurtured some talent that ends up pulling kids to Unit. If they post on their Instagram that they're going to Unit 23, kids will want to go. And so I think it all just, the more people involved in the sport, the better. Simple as that. Definitely don't see it as competition.
Oh, I love that. I really love how you're like together, you're pioneering the scene, making it seem cool. And it's almost a lovely natural transition to my next question. And it's based off the observation I've had of the scene going through it, because I used to be involved in the scene and I still wish I was. But essentially, I think the demographics shaped like an hourglass. At the very bottom, you've got your kind of 5-year-olds to 15-year-olds, where the target audience is expansive. Everyone's picking up a bike or board for the first time. You probably got quite a lot of football from that area. And then in the middle of the hourglass, where it tightens back in, you've got your 15 to 25-year-olds, where kids are starting to conform to football and nights out and drinking and trying to just fit in. And I don't, maybe more in 2020, but prior to this, skateboarding and BMX didn't seem really cool, and no one wanted to be this extrovert maverick doing this extreme sport. And then from the ages of maybe 25 onwards, it goes back out into like where veterans have done it for years and there's more of them. How do you make, or do you make skateboarding, BMXing cool for all or accessible to all? Is that a mission of yours?
I would say a mission is definitely like making it accessible to as many people as possible. That's definitely part of the mission. I wouldn't say the cool aspect isn't a mission, but it's definitely in every, like, I do think about that every time I post on Instagram. Like, I want everything to look as cool as possible. Simple as that. It's what draws me to the sport still. Like, I sit and consume like all the content as well. I watch all the stuff on YouTube, and I know, well, I like to think I've got my finger on what kind of makes it look cooler. And that's definitely a thought. But yeah, accessibility to all is like what we'd love to achieve, and we'd love to work more with the schools. It's just that it's a tough. We have been making small jumps in the right direction, but it is it's a tough thing, especially when you've maybe got like teachers that are slightly older and are stuck in their ways with traditional sports. Girls should play grass hockey and netball, and the guys should play football and rugby, and it's trying to kind of break that mold a little bit. And it's definitely starting, but we live in Scotland. We're probably 20 years behind, like what's happening in California, what's happening in Australia. So in terms of it not, you mentioned about like it maybe wasn't deemed quite as cool, and certainly I remember at school and skateboarding definitely wasn't deemed as being very cool in terms of where the location that we happen to be. However, if you go to Venice Beach in California, skateboarding is pretty damn cool there, and it has been for years. You go to Byron Bay, in the east coast of Australia, like skateboarding and surfing are pretty damn cool. Like it just happens to be a circumstance of where we are, and our mentality and our reactiveness to it's pretty slow. It reflects skate parks as well. Like I watched a podcast with Tony Hawk actually not too long ago. It might have been his 9 Club one, and he talks about the Tony Hawk Skate Park Foundation, how many skate parks they've built. It's insane, and obviously that's mainly they're dotted all around the world, but it's mainly in the US. And I just how many skate parks we have for the population and for the space that we have are definitely it's not high enough yet. We've got a football pitch in every school. We've got they spend millions on 3G pitches. Which I'm all for investment in sport, but how many times do you drive past like a multi-million-pound athletics facility that's not being used? Whereas there's always we've never had a day where we've opened in 5 years where no one's turned up.
I think like it's like hearing my own thoughts. The reason I gave up the sport, and I think if I did maybe gave it up a year later when you had the skate park built in the community, I think I would have still been in it. But I think, there was a complete culture lag where I conformed. It's not because I didn't enjoy the sport and I didn't enjoy the adrenaline. It was because all my friends were going to the gym or playing football, and I wasn't cool if I did that. And it was a complete conformity piece, because like I said to you before the podcast, I still follow all the content and I still love all that adrenaline high. And I think if it was maybe the skate park opened a few years earlier, I would never have fallen off the scene, because I would have found more belonging in the skate park. Yeah. And it's a shame that this is probably a theme throughout Scotland, throughout the UK. And honestly, I'm so proud that you have that facility, and there's places like Unit 23 that build that belonging and shape that culture. I'm sure you're so proud of it. And I think that leads on well to my next question, which is about brands such as Supreme and Vans old school trainers like being fashionable, especially in like 2019, 2020. You see down the high street, everyone's wearing Supreme. Do you think this has seen an uptake in BMX and in skateboarding? And what's your thoughts on it? Do you like it?
I think, well, I mean, if you ask the kind of hardcore skaters, for example, like they absolutely despise the fact that it's become like a massive fact. The bottom line is skateboarding has influenced streetwear massively, which is in turn, I mean, like high fashion now looks to streetwear. Like, I mean, when you look at the appointment of like Virgil Abloh to Louis Vuitton and stuff like that, I mean, that like years ago that would have just never have happened. Like someone coming from streetwear, Off-White, going into that position, it's completely flipped on its head. It used to be the other way around. You know, if you've watched the movie like is it The Devil Wears Prada and stuff like that, that's based on like Anna Wintour, and like those it was the high fashion that set all the trends, and for the last few years it's been flipped on its head, and it's the streetwear that sets the trends for the high fashion, which is, it's been quite interesting to watch. I mean, I'm not an enormous fan of people paying 600 quid for a hoodie, because I just think that's a complete waste of time and money. But I think it's definitely made it cooler in terms of like that initial generation that come into the sports. So like the kids have started getting younger that come to the skate park. You know, when I first went to a skate park, you know, there definitely wasn't kids, you know, there weren't kids that were 5, 6, 7 years old in the skate park. It was definitely like, I would say the floor for it was probably like a kind of early teenager year. Whereas, I mean, we do lessons and we have, you know, 10 kids come that are like 5 and 6 years old, like trying to learn to skate for the first time and stuff like that. And I think that's definitely good. And like, you know, watching, obviously the Olympics will, you know, there's different views on whether the Olympics is a good or a bad thing. But I mean, I think ultimately it's a great thing in terms of getting exposure to the sports. And, you know, you don't know, there might just be that 1 or 2 kids that decide they want to go and grab a board or a bike and give it a shot. So you know, it's good. And there's always, like, you know, when Wimbledon's on, there's always like tons of people playing tennis. Like, I think it hopefully will have the same effect. Yeah, in terms of the making it cooler, yeah, I think it's split down the middle. Like half the people like aren't really, they first of all get into skateboarding to kind of not conform, like you said, and now it's becoming more of a normal thing. I think they kind of don't like that as much. But I think it's cool. I think it's cool that the style has like, and you know, it's massively influenced, and that's kind of how I choose to dress. Like most of the time, like I'll just be in like jeans and a hoodie, and I've always like, you know, I like Vans is a bit different as well, because I think a lot of riders buy Vans because they put a lot of money back into the competitions and they sponsor a lot of riders, and you know, I think when you get older, you kind of appreciate that aspect of it as well.
A prime case study of what you've conceptualized there is what I'm wearing just now is a brand called Collection 26 Glasgow, and it's my mate who was on one of the episodes of the podcast created a streetwear brand. And what you just laid out, where it is now flipped on its head, where streetwear informs fashion. he's seen a massive growth within the last 2 years because of that. He's went from like sub 10k followers to now 55,000. He's went from making £1,000 annual revenue to hundreds of thousands of pounds just from his bedroom because, like we said, that paradigm shift of streetwear or skateboarding now informed fashion. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I think it leads nicely onto when you're talking about Vans sponsoring skateboarders and riders. How does it feel now that you have your own bunch of riders that you support and you now employ friends to work at the park? How does that make you feel?
That's definitely, it's an amazing feeling to be able to do that, to be able to, you know, to be able to support guys, to be able to, you know, see their riding progress, and yeah, to employ friends. It's a funny one actually. Like depending on who you speak to, they'll have very different views on employing friends and stuff like that. But I mean, I think it's been a pretty good experience. I mean, employing people in general is like pretty frustrating at times, just naturally, like depending, it's not really based on how good they are or whatever. There's always issues that will arise, and you've got to deal with them. So I would say overall, it's been a great experience. It's been amazing to be able to do that. It's been amazing to be able to like organize trips with people that, you know, otherwise maybe wouldn't, or like you say, like there's guys that might have even fallen off of like really, you know, not being involved in the sport as much, that are hugely talented, and we have the opportunity now. It's, you know, we can stand in and make sure that they don't, and make sure that they have a place that they can come anytime to go and ride. You know, we've got guys they've got keys to the park. They can go and use it at their disposal, and it's great, and it gives us, you know, the opportunity to like film and get content, and it all helps.
That's so sick. We spoke earlier about essentially the one point in time where you had 30 odd thousand pounds worth of timber, finance advisors, investment, Vision Ramps as a contractor, and an empty warehouse. And now what we've spoke about, you've built this entire community, entire park, and it's flourishing. So now that this is all built, and when skate parks were open, now that it's all fully fledged, like what got you out of your bed in the morning now that it's all completed, essentially?
Yeah, it's never complete. It's constant. It's constant. I think, yeah, I mean, certainly, it's not like we're sitting back and just, you know, counting the days to retirement or anything like that. There's still a lot to do on a daily basis, you know, and just in terms of general running, just you know, keeping a skate park tidy. You know, it's 10,000 square foot inside. That's a mammoth task on its own. Let alone, like, you know, we also have plans for the future as well that we'd like
Can you not
to
just tie a brush to the back of a bike and just cycle around and clean it?
Well, do you remember when those kind of Segway things were a thing?
Yeah.
We did a couple of videos like going around the park pushing a brush on those and stuff. But yeah, just the general, you know, we've got like a decent sized little shop and stuff like that as well that runs off the back of it, and you know, that all takes time, like sourcing stock and you know, dealing with finances, dealing with, you know, employee, you know, employees and all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely there's a lot behind the scenes that not a lot of people see. You know, I spend a lot of time on my laptop, probably more than people think. It doesn't all happen by magic, you know. It does take some serious thought.
I can imagine the amount of not only man time actually doing things, but brain time. You probably have all these ruminating thoughts of where can I take the park, or these tasks are to be done. What's the kind of deep rooted motivation though that kind of inspires you to get these tasks done? Is it because you're a safe haven for kids or a community for kids that didn't exist before? For example, I used to cut around the same park, the S Park, that was full of broken glass and drug users. Is that what kind of makes these tasks a bit more manageable, knowing that you contribute to society in some massive or minimal way? That depends on the way you think about it.
Yeah, I think basically the feeling is now that like, we can't lose this facility. Simple as that. Like that kind of keeps us going. The amount of people that tell us on a regular basis, how crucial we are. Now that it's here, between we've had parents literally crying to us, because if it wasn't for this place, their kid really was on a path to not a great quality of life, or just the respite that parents have, the fun that the kids have. Like, it's just that we get so many parents telling us they use it as a behaviour kind of monitor. They can just say, well, you're not going to skate park this week. We have kids from care, kids that are in care that use the facility as like they use it as like a reward, as physical activity, and the benefits of that, like the carers that bring them in like always sing our praises in that respect as well. And the fact that you know yourself when you go to a skate park, it's not really, no one really cares what background you're from or whatever. It's more just about like if you're having fun and say you're good at what you do, that's what the kids pick up on. They don't really care what kind of home life you're from or what other stuff's going on. So it definitely is a bit of that as well. And yeah, we've got so many good, I mean, the amount of parents that are so supportive of us because they see the benefits of it. We've had kids that have been struggling in school, and this, coming to the park and like they'll end up meeting people that are all, because it's a whole variance in age group. So they end up meeting people that are a few years older than them at school, and it's stopped bullying, and there's a whole range of things. You could go on and on and on about the benefits of like a community like that, because anything else, when you go to football or whatever, it's always like an age category, isn't it? When I was playing football, it was under 11s, under 12s, and you never really ever got to go and like socialize or whatever with anyone else out that initial group. So we've got kids that are like 11 years old, and they'll come in and they're like, they've got the banter on the go with like a 25-year-old and stuff. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. That's one of my favourite things to see for sure.
You're talking about personal. I think you're talking from personal experience there, Maxwell. I think you've been slagged by a 5-year-old.
It happens.
And honestly, like that's such a warm message, and like I can imagine how proud you are. Like I'm even proud as like a spectator from a local town of just that, because I know, like I said at the introduction to the podcast, you were a role model to me. You and Dave were, honestly to God, role models to me in that time, because essentially, like the S Park, which was in a really rough council area, was full of drug users passing by, and like you said, there was a mixed diversity of people with footfall into that park, and the people that belonged there, like yourself and Dave, did never discriminated based on your background, your home life, what's happening at school. And having you guys spearheading some sort of movement and community, for me, was, like I said, it was so role modeling for me. And I think that is so important that a facility like yours exists, where 5 to 10-year-olds who are maybe being bullied at school or come from a disadvantaged background or suffering from some sort of domestic problem at home can go and escape to a place like your facility and mingle with people like yourself who, like we spoke about for the last hour and a half, or how long we've been in the podcast, they will subconsciously receive traits like pushing the red, finding their passion and crushing it. Like subconsciously, you're drip feeding traits and ideologies into these kids. And honestly, mate, you should be so proud. Like I said, you're a role model to me, and so was Dave. So thanks.
Yeah, it's amazing hearing that, because certainly at the time, I'm a bit more aware of it now, but at that time I wasn't. We were just doing. We've both been lucky enough to have had really good families that have raised with some pretty good attributes, and we've just tried to do what we've just tried to share our passion and tried to encourage it along the way. So yeah, definitely back then that was not a thought at all. But certainly as you start, being told more and more from parents and stuff like that, it definitely it feels good. It feels good. It's nice having that responsibility as well to try and just get across the kind of best aspects of it towards people.
That's awesome. That is so awesome to hear. We spoke before the call about how skate culture and BMX also influence content creation. People who are involved in that scene spend just as much time videoing themselves or getting people to video them and go away and edit videos creatively. And I know like you're a massive fan of that. Like your work is amazing. So how much of that kind of passion for content creation feeds into the marketing of Shred?
It's pretty much everything. You know, other than people coming through the door and witnessing it for themselves, we've got, that's the only other way we can show it. And we can't, sending out emails, which, we do to let people keep up to date with, a specific event or something, but like nothing shows it better than like someone having fun on camera in the skate park. Simple as that. Like, and I've definitely worked hard at that for the last few years, trying to get that on point. And photography and filming, like you say, it was just something that came like hand in hand. And the only difference really in the last while is the fact that I've tried to level up that quality. And obviously it would have been the kids all carry around blinking iPhones with 4K cameras in their pockets now. Like it's a lot easier. Like I remember like hitting dirt jumps down the river and like sneaking out my dad's like Sony Cybershot point and shoot that had like 2 Duracell batteries in it, and it maybe lasted I don't know 20 minutes, and it filmed in VGA. Like I mean, it was just the pixels were massive. But as it's progressed, like that is an aspect I really enjoy, and certainly going forward, I've certainly kind of toyed with that idea of changing my career towards that sort of aspect, and especially with the way the world is at the moment with marketing, and it's definitely something that's not going away.
Could you essentially do what you do for Shred, the whole kind of content creation piece, but for other skate parks as like not a contractor, but like a freelancer? Have you ever toyed with doing that? Just like Vision Maps takes their business model of just standing up skate parks, but then now they've transitioned into diversified markets like James Bond and Danny McCaskill. Do you ever think about doing that content creation piece, but diversifying it across other skate parks or other local clubs?
Yeah, and I mean certainly like not just skate parks. I mean like just in action sports or even broader in general. I mean I've actually I got quite into filming with a drone and stuff like that. I got myself a drone a couple of years ago, and I ended up just getting a couple. What's that?
Was it a DJI drone?
Yeah. Somewhere here. So it's just one of the wee Mavic Pros, but it's I've just ended up like really enjoying that aspect, and I've ended up I've had a few wee kind of side gigs here and there to do bits and bobs for different companies, like a kind of broad range of things, which has been quite strange. It's just because people see what I do and inquire about it. So it has been on my mind the last little while, where I've got a kind of bit of a skill set. I've tried to the online market. We launched our online store as well, and that's definitely been like I'm really interested, and I'm pretty passionate to try and work that out a bit better and learn a bit more there. So we built a store on Shopify, and got that. That's where now like our online bookings go through, and I'm just trying to kind of move with the times a little bit and make sure that we're ahead of the game. And it's just something that interests me. Like I'll go back to I can't get good at anything I don't enjoy, and I really quite enjoy that side of it. The Instagram marketing. I really enjoy just, and I'm not talking about like paying for ads. I'm, just trying to do it organically. We've pretty much never paid for an ad on that sort of stuff. I think we've got like a Google ad running just for the website, like a really basic one, but that's about it. We've just tried to do it all purely organic.
Again, this is so thematic because we spoke about you being in the RAF, having control over your creativity and your outlets, but now as a content creator, like you have complete creative control of how the Shred Skatepark's perceived by public. And I just think like this conversation is so full circle, and it also relates back to the compound interest effect of going from like a 3-foot jump to a 6-foot jump to owning a skate park. We spoke about you once filming on a cyber shot, and now like you're doing diversified projects for different brands. I know you do like a lot of car projects as well. I've seen on your Instagram.
Yeah, again, it's just more a passion thing. Like it's just something I enjoy. Yeah, we've filmed a couple of things. Like I got a motorbike last summer and stuff as well. So like I got a couple of bits of content with that. It's just I just gravitate what I think is cool at the time. That's simple as that. Like, you spoke about like conforming and stuff, and we're definitely all guilty of it at some point, especially going through that kind of adolescence like thing. But I've definitely just tried to never. Dave's really good at that. He genuinely he doesn't give a damn about what anyone thinks, and that's really refreshing. Honestly, I definitely wish I had more of that in me. But I just try and follow what I think is cool. I'm not trying to do what other people think is cool. I'm not trying to do any of that. Yeah, just naturally follow.
That's so sick, and that kind of messaging is something I use in my day-to-day job, where the kind of charity work I do for the Social Mobility Foundation, I've noticed the most results that I've received, or the best feedback I've received, is not in the employability workshops I do for kids or the CV writing workshops I do for kids. It's just displaying my true self, because they look, for my job, I work in a glossy big office in a suit, but people must think that they can't relate to me because I'm this guy in a suit and they were maybe from a social economic disadvantaged background. But like I said, the best feedback I've received is just being my true self. And a lot of people in my work don't act their true self. And I think that's the true glass ceiling to fulfillment and success. And I love how like you and Dave have been successful just because you've just stuck to your roots and stuck to your true self and don't literally like, give a fuck what people think of you. And that's probably why you live such a fulfilling life.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't want to, and again that goes back to like the RAF. You kind of feel like you're living for like on someone else's terms, having to act a particular way, having to do things. And it's just not what I'm about. It's simple as that. I've just always tried to stay as true as I can to myself. I mean, there's always going to be times where you maybe have to do things you don't want to do, but yeah, I think that's possibly a massive reason for like a kind of mental health pandemic as well at the moment, where I think so many people, and again, I put a lot of blame on school. I really, other than the social aspect at school, and I mean like I don't mean like having a good time with mates. I mean learning how to like deal with a whole varied population of people from different aspects that have been brought up differently. I think that's really the main thing I learned from school. I think the rest of it really needs a bit of a shape up. I really would like to just completely scrap the education system and start again.
Me too. Like for example, like kids are given like 7 subjects to study a week, but instead of doing it in like 7-hour blocks or 5-hour blocks, doing like a maths one day, then music the next day, then French the next day, you do it in hourly blocks where kids are moving between classrooms, packing up and setting up 15 minutes every single lesson. Their attention span is literally so minimal. No wonder they're so distracted in class. If I were to run a school, I would just have, like I said, 5 days, one subject each day. I would totally scrap it too.
I also think there's a fundamental flaw with. I understand you need you need everyone to try so many different things to try and get them to find that thing that they like or they're good at, right? I understand you need the variance there. However, in life, if you look at all successful people, they only need to be really good at one thing. Like, if you're really good at one thing, you can make a success of it, and everything else, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People will do it. Like Andy Murray only needs to be good at tennis. He doesn't need to know how to manage his finances. He doesn't need to know. He doesn't need to know how to add up. Like the umpire does the adding for him. He just needs to be good at tennis. And the fact that at school they then like, you know, fair enough, first and second year maybe trying to find your footing, but like by the time you're looking to set exams and stuff, I really do feel you should just be like focused on one thing.
Yeah, my biggest gripe in society is that at the age of 16 or 17, we're forced to make one critical decision, that is what course you're going to go study at university or what career you're going to go into. And at the age of 16 or 17, you haven't flirted with enough curiosity to understand what you want to hone in on yet. I think like we should delay that process to the age of maybe now 22, 24, because that's where I've discovered that, and had between the age of 13 and 22 a schooling system where, like you said, you do flirt with more curiosities and you do try more things, but not just limited to adding up or math or trigonometry or English. Like we should promote like complete abstract things like podcasting and content creation and skateboarding. That should be part of like some sort of school curriculum that should be elongated over 10 years. So when that crucial decision is made at the age of 22 or 25 or whenever we want to decide when it's made, they have had enough life experience to then hone in on that one thing that they want to be really good at. For example, Andy Murray tennis. Don't you agree?
Yeah, totally. I think so. And I think the curriculum needs to be updated in a far more efficient cycle. Like I think back, I left school in 2007. There wasn't a single mention by any of my teachers about this technical revolution that was basically, I mean, the snowball was gathering so much momentum at that time. You know, Facebook, YouTube birthed on, I'm sure it was 2007, they both birthed that. And there was just very little. There was no mention actually, whether they didn't want to say it or whether they didn't know. I've got a suspicion it's the second one. There was never a mention that like a penny could be made online. Never. Not one teacher made any. I mean, and when I was in fifth year, I did like a business management. I mean, I don't think the teacher had ever been involved in any business ever. I just think there was so many shortfalls, and you can definitely see it. Like now that I get to interact with so many like levels of the generation, I get to see like definitely shortcomings and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, like what they talk about. I mean, they've got iPads in schools and stuff now. But I mean, that's their response when you talk about them being like out of date. You know, they've got iPads in schools now.
I'm sure you agree. In terms of like business management at school, a lot of people go on to then study business at university. But you'll probably agree, like the best way to learn business is by just doing. I think the fact that business teachers even exist is a simulacrum that people who can do, people who can't teach. And that's such a horrible thing to say, and I don't want to condemn the teaching profession. But I totally believe that if the best way to learn business is by just finding your niche, finding that passion, and just somehow, like you have done, monetizing it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's maybe not everyone. I think there's the way I learn and the way a lot of people learn isn't by someone standing up in front of 30 kids and you sitting at a desk. Like that's some people do learn that way. My wife is definitely has more of an academic brain. Like she did very well in school and she was able to learn that way. I can't. You can tell me how to do something. I need to take it apart. I need to, I just, that's the way I do it. I need to do it to learn. So I think there's maybe, unfortunately, schools maybe just catered for only one type of mind rather than many types of minds. I mean, I've watched countless, documentaries on, young guy who had a lot of issues at school, and was really doing badly at school, and I think he ended up being drafted out of that, and it turned out he was really gifted when it comes to computer coding, and basically the teachers were completely writing him off up till the age of 12, and I think once he left, between 12 and 14, I think he developed like 14 worldwide apps. So I think we all learn a bit differently.
I think I got off that, like, teachers both don't really inspire you and I. So who inspires you?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, my dad probably was like an early, inspiration. He was a bit like, he was how I am for his generation, I think, not in terms of his work. He was an engineer to trade, and he now manages thousands of people, and he's a general manager in Scottish Water, and he's been pretty career driven and stuff like that. But he was always a nutcase. He was always on motorbikes. He had a hovercraft. He had 2 boats. He had, I think that's definitely where I get that kind of aspect. And extreme sports, he was just that generation too early, I think, for him to get involved in that kind of stuff. So he was definitely a kind of first inspiration. A bit of a stranger one, but certainly as I was starting to, think more about running a business and stuff like that, Sir Tom Hunter as well, just knowing that a guy from, over the hills there was able to reach the status that he has, I think that definitely kind of hits home that you don't need to be a certain, elite, or it's easy when we watch all our politicians that have been to all these fancy prep schools and stuff like that. It's easy for you to start thinking that it's not achievable for folks like us. So I think that's definitely, that was good. Sitting watching Dragon's Den, watching Duncan Bannatyne as well, like guys like that. Like, I think I just more related to those guys because they sounded a bit more like me and where I was from, and kind of understood that. But then on more of a kind of newer level, like definitely watching like Casey Neistat's career has been incredible, and knowing a bit about his story and stuff like that really is an amazing story. From washing dishes at 15-year-old, and having his first kid at that age, and then being able to kind of work up the ranks and hone his craft of filmmaking to be able to sell a documentary that he kind of made for some fun with his brother, like, to HBO, and then getting employed by Nike and Mercedes and all that sort of stuff, I think, and then then deciding to basically have a tech startup. I mean, that it's just incredible. And then I'm trying to think of. There's a lot of people that are like there's athletes in the fields that I love as well. I definitely look up to those guys. There's definitely less in terms of like a direct business person. Like I don't really strive to be that guy who's all about business. I don't see much enjoyment in that at all. You can make a lot of money, but I don't really, you could go and broker deals in Wall Street and all the rest of it, but are you really, I don't see much fulfillment in that. So I don't really have any kind of business leaders as such as like probably, I would say the only one that probably gets my brain going quite a bit is Elon Musk, because he's just not from this planet. But all the rest are, yeah.
But
I've got no ambition of, like, you know, owning Walmart or something like that.
I think that's such a good message though. Like for example, Casey Neistat doesn't do what he does to generate revenue and have some sort of
Yeah,
business status. He does it just to have fun. And I think that's so translucent and so parallel to your story. Like everything that you've done, especially with the birth and the growth of Shred Skatepark, you're doing what comes naturally to you and what you enjoy. And because of that, and because you've doubled down on it, you've got the amazing you've got amazing footfall and you've got this respect from communities and stuff, but that's not what you've seek to do. You've not went for status, you've just went for fun. And I think that's such a great
yeah,
message to share.
yeah, yeah.
So one of the questions that came through is from mutual friend Johnny Dobie, who's a user of your skatepark. He asks,
The dipster.
the dipster, he asks, if you received a crazy investment in the park, hundreds of millions of pounds, how would Shred look like? What's the dream Shred?
Well, I mean, you'll know when I say it. Woodward is the gold standard when it comes to that sort of stuff. So for those that don't know, Woodward is like an American-based company that just they've got a few dotted around the world now, actually, but they basically have a massive plot of land, and they've got like accommodation and all the rest of it. So they do camps for kids, but you know, the main camp is run around the fact that they have the most insane skate parks, plural, dotted around, like, you know, so they'll have like a 50-acre area, and, you know, they'll just build the craziest things. They've got warehouses, they've got outdoor bowls, they've got street plazas, they've got foam pits, they've got mega ramps, they've got full half pipes, they've got it's absolutely nuts. And they're complete breeding grounds for pros, simple as that. And it attracts pros to do camps with the kids, and in turn it just passes down from onto the next generation. I'm pretty sure that was the first time I ever saw a foam pit, was a video at Woodward or a photo at Woodward. Like, they're just, that's the gold standard. And I would love, we've talked about it, we've dreamt about it. We managed to build the skate park, which was a dream, so there's no reason why we can't do that at some point. But we would love to have like a massive area with an enormous warehouse, with like a bunch of the kind of pod cabins that you see at like Glencoe or something like that, and looking down onto like an amazing outdoor park with an indoor facility as well. That would be the dream. And I mean, for me personally, I've got a friend I talk about this a lot to, because he kind of shares this mad vision as well, where we're involved in tons of sports, so why wouldn't there be a man-made lake for wakeboarding next to it, and why wouldn't there be a massive climbing centre, and why wouldn't there be like a surf machine? Like, why wouldn't there be? So if 100 million dropped into my account right now, that's exactly what I would be doing.
I would be on the online booking system in about 15 minutes, booking a 2-week all-inclusive holiday there, mate, round the road.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'd love to. One of my final few questions is, if you were to give Craig Maxwell advice 10 years ago, or someone who wants to monetize their passion, what advice would you give them?
I'd definitely try and stay true to what you're into as much as possible. It's so easy to deviate and for you to follow what society kind of wants you to do. So I would hone in on that, because I've watched it happen, with so many people, where they just allow that to just creep into their head a bit too much. And if they just decide what you like and make decisions based on that, rather than what you think you should be doing, just do it.
I love that. I think I'm even testament to that in my kind of corporate life. I went through a series of doing accounting exams. I qualified as an accountant, and then I realized for me, accounting was pretty fucking boring. So now I'm like a management consultant because through school I loved management theories. I loved the idea of leadership and designing a business and how it should look. And I think your message is completely testament to that. So the final question I want to ask is, what's next for Craig Maxwell and what's next for Shred?
Well, 2020's kind of scuppered and put hold on a lot of things, but we were definitely making the right moves to kind of go for a whole plan for Shred 2.0. And it's definitely been put on the back burner due to this year. This year has been tough in terms of plans, in terms of finances. So it's definitely knocked us back quite a bit. But yeah, that's.
And when you said Shred 2.0, do you mean ripping down the current facility and creating a new one, or just having another facility as well as Shred 1.0?
No, having a whole new facility, like in replacement of Shred 1.0,
okay.
but a whole new purpose-built, completely brand spanking new from the ground up facility for Shred. That's been the goal. How it stands at the moment, it was kind of like a science project got out of hand. So we've kind of, we knew it would work to a degree, but we just needed to know that we could, we had this, enough people coming, and we had the ability to like grow the new kind of next breed to come through the skate park. And yeah, now we'd love like a proper purpose-built place. In the facility that we've got at the moment, it was built to utilise as much, like every square inch in that place. It was to try and maximise the space, because it is quite a small unit for a commercial skate park. So we had to try and maximise the space to make the park feel as big as possible. And in doing that, we kind of hindered ourselves for holding events. That's a big one. So we've not really got a good layout for holding events, and that's something that we've realised, and we know what we would do differently. So that would be a big focus, and I would love to then, the dream would be able to hold potentially Olympic qualifying events in the future, thinking further down the line. So that's definitely the bigger goal in that. And we'd love to get the place so that we're kind of financially secure going forward. So when you know the facilities, not going to disappear for the next 20 years or and beyond, that's kind of where we want to be.
That's sick. So what's next for Craig Maxwell individual?
That's a good question. Well, fatherhood. I mean, that's pretty much that's a big part now. I want to raise my son to, to be able to experience the world as well as I have. I've been lucky enough to be able to fly around the world a few times, and I want to do that with my son now as well. I want to take him surfing in Bali. I want to take him snowboarding in the Alps. So that's the massive focus for me now is that my family, which it's almost going before that. It's definitely changed since he's come along. In terms of I don't really have many aspirations that don't involve spending time with him. So that's definitely changes you a little bit.
Like I said previously, you're such a role model to me, and the conversation we've had about societal conformity, the education system, I'm sure Brody's in amazing hands to become the raddest wee guy, getting about the most self-actualized guy, doing the most fulfilling hobbies and career, I'm sure. I just can't wait to see it. So where can the people find you online? Where can the people find Shred Skatepark?
So yeah, we post probably Instagram, just at Shred Skatepark. From there, you'll find kind of a link to the website and all that. All the information's on the website, www.shredskatepark.co.uk. You can follow me if you desire. I'm Maxi Shred on Instagram, Maxi Shred. Yeah, I mean, between that, we kind of post when we're running. It's a bit different at the moment, being in lockdown and being closed again. We'd normally be posting on the daily, and we were getting into a good rhythm with the YouTube channel as well for a little bit until lockdown hit and kind of scuppered what we could do. We've been doing all sorts, strapping 2-stroke engines to a bike and riding it in the park and stuff like that, and just trying to make the most of having this space. One of the things actually I didn't mention, but one of the things planting the seed was, I don't know if you ever watched Fantasy Factory.
Yeah, Rob Dyrdek.
Yeah, but I mean that's essentially, we essentially have a warehouse to have fun in, and that's another thing that we try, like, it's the possibilities are endless. It doesn't need to be a BMX or a skateboard. So we've had a few fun times in with motorbikes and quad bikes and all sorts. It's good fun.
That's
those videos always do well from a marketing point of view.
Well, hopefully in a couple of years' time we can do this again. I'll make sure to link all the show notes all your links where people can find Shred Skatepark. But thanks for coming on. The message was amazing. I'm so grateful.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. You're doing a good job.